Hi, kids. Welcome to Miss Nancy's Bible College for Kids. Today's lesson is part 3 in the book of Esther, and it's called Brave Queen Esther and the Golden Sceptre. And it's in the book of Esther in the Old Testament, so let's get started. It came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel. Now, I want to remind you just a little bit, in case you're just tuning in, that her uncle Mordecai, who raised her, had told her and all that was going on in the land of Shushan, and she had told them to fast and pray, and she and her maidens would too. So that's what's going on, and she told them she would approach the king, and that's why I call it Brave Queen Esther. And if he accepted her, good, and if not, she'd just die. She was willing to do that. So Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in his royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight, and the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Then said the king unto her, What will thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be even given to thee to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste. I say right here the king was probably hungry. But anyway, that he may do as Esther has said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said to Esther at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. It's the second time he said it. Then answered Esther and said, My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king had said. I think on this story, and I thought they had a big feast 180 days. Then they had a feast for a week. Now they're having 2 feasts, and these people love to eat. I would have loved to have been there. But anyway, then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai, remember that's Esther's uncle, in the king's gate, that he stood not up nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, so he held back one time. And when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and his wife, Zeresh. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children. That kind of puzzles Miss Nancy, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him. Remember, King Ahasuerus had promoted him above all the princes in all the provinces, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman said, moreover, Yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king into the banquet that she had prepared but myself. And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. One thing bugged him. All the things he was blessed with, it took all the joy of that away to make him mad and upset about this one thing. It's just like us people. We get so much, but then there's one thing that we want that we say, well, I can't be happy because I don't have that one thing. You forget about the 99 things that you have. Just like kids at Christmas, if they don't get exactly what they want, I'm just saying. Then said Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him, Let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high. And I looked that up. That's about 75 feet or 6 stories, it says when I looked it up. And I'll make sure that when we get the questions and answers. And tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai be hanged thereon. Then go there merrily into the banquet with the king. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused a gallows to be made. You'll be sorry of that soon. On that night, though, here we change places. We're going to the king's palace. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And the king said, "What honor and dignity had been done to Mordecai for this?" Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, "There is nothing done for him." And the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servant said unto him, "Behold, Haman standeth in the court." And the king said, "Let him come in." So Haman came in. And the king said unto him, "What shall be done unto a man whom the king delighteth to honor?" Now Haman thought in his heart, "To whom would the king delight to do honor more than myself?" And Haman answered the king, "For the man whom the king delighteth to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which a king useth to wear." I love that. Used clothing. That's right up Miss Nancy's alley. "And the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let this apparel and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor." I can just hear him saying that. I don't know if that's the way it went down. Then the king said to Haman, "Make haste," that means hurry up, "and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken." Now, the king did not know at this point that Mordecai was a Jew, because he had told the king, Haman had, that it was a certain people. So the king was blindsided a little bit. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, "Thus shall it be done unto a man whom the king delighteth to honor." And Mordecai came again to the king's gate. But Haman, everything had changed for him. Haman hasted to his house, mourning. That means being sad, maybe even weeping, and having his head covered. He didn't want nobody to see his face. And Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all of his friends, everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, "If Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shall surely fall before him." And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains, and hasted to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared. What a day in Haman's life. So let's get on with the questions. What happened on the third day in this story? Remember, the queen put on her royal apparel, entered the royal house, and was waiting by the wall of the house for the king to recognize her or to turn her away. And what happened when King Ahasuerus saw Esther? She obtained favor, and what did the king hold out to her? The golden scepter. And what did Esther do? She touched the tip of it, didn't she? And then, when the king Ahasuerus asked Queen Esther what she desired, what did he promise with that? He said, "Tell me what you request, and I'll grant it, and I will give you up to half of the kingdom." What did Queen Esther request? "King and Haman, come to a banquet that I prepared for you." So, what happened? The king got in a hurry, and he told Haman, "Come on, let's go." Like I said, I think he was hungry. But when the king asked of Queen Esther her petition, at the banquet of wine, again, what did he promise her? Up to half of the kingdom. Miss Nancy wants to pause right there for a second and say, I wonder how many Jews was throughout the 127 province of his kingdom, because, well, the end of the thing is coming up, but I wonder if she got what he promised up to half, over half, a little under. Miss Nancy's always curious. But anyway, what did Queen Esther petition or request? If I have found favor, and it please the king to grant my petition, let you and Haman come to a banquet that I'll prepare tomorrow, and then I'll tell you what I desire. When Haman went forth with a glad heart, why did he become full of indignation? In other words, why did he get so angry right after he was just on the mountaintop? He saw somebody at the king's gate. Who was it? Mordecai. What did not Mordecai do? He didn't stand up or honor him. Now that was to the people of the land that it had been ruled by the king for Haman. But not Mordecai, he was a Jew. What did Haman tell them about when he got home to his wife, whose name was what? Zeresh, and all of his friends? He started telling them about his glory and riches, the number of his children, about him being promoted above all the king's men, all the princes and servants. And then he told them about the banquet. He said, just the king and I are the only ones invited. And I'll tell you this, we're invited again tomorrow. But still, that one thing bothered him about Mordecai, and he told him about it. What was Zeresh, his wife, and his friend's idea? To build a gallows. And this thing was big. I imagine it's so tall. Anyway, did Haman build it for Mordecai? Yes, he did, didn't he? And then his friends told him, and his wife said, then you can go on and be happy at the banquet that the queen's going to have tomorrow. But at another place that night, what was the king doing? He could not sleep. So what did he do? He brought the book of Chronicles of the king, which is like a record book, I imagine. Maybe the laws. But anyway, he had it read to him. And what did he find in that book? He found out about a man named Mordecai. What had Mordecai done that was recorded in this book? He told him about the two gatekeepers, and their names are Bigthana and Teresh, and they were going to lay hold on the king. And then what did King Ahasuerus ask? He said, what's been done to honor or dignify this man for what he did for me? What was the answer? Nothing. Nothing's been done for him. So, why was Haman the next day going to go before the king? He was going to talk to him about hanging Mordecai on those gallows that he built, wasn't he? But when King Ahasuerus found out that he was in the court, that Haman was, what did he want done? He told him, said, send him in. And when he got there, what did King Ahasuerus ask Haman? He said, what should be done for a man that did something special for the king? And Haman thought, who could he be talking about except me? So Haman came up with this plan. What did he suggest? He said, well, king, you could, dress him in one of your royal robes that you wore and put him on your horse that you ride and set a crown on his head, and send him through the town and, say, this is because he's done so much for the king. So then what did King Ahasuerus say to Haman? He said, hurry up, go do everything that you said. Don't let any of it not happen. And what did Haman do? He went and did every bit of it, didn't he? When Mordecai come again to the gate, what did Haman do at this point? After they rode through the town and Haman had told him why he was riding that horse, he dropped his head and he was mourning. He was so sad, and he went home. And again, who did he talk to? His wife Zeresh and all of his friends. And he told them what had happened. Well, then what did they tell him? They said, if Mordecai is a Jew and you start taking down these people, you will not prevail. And so anyway, who came to get Haman to take him to the banquet? Two of the king's chamberlains, didn't they? Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this part of the story because I know Miss Nancy did. And I'll see you next time. Bye, kids.